So Schumann Antiques is about 20 miles from downtown Louisville, and it used to be the train stop on the way from Louisville to Shelbyville. Now Jimmy rolls into town and says, "Hey, I got this saw I want to go look at. Could you take me out there?" We jumped in the car and went out there. And my first response was, "Yeah, that's a really cool saw, but how in the hell are we going to get it out of here?"
Walking up the stairs, going into the shop, the first thing I noticed was the smell of sawdust in the air. Sawdust was literally covering everything. It was on the shelves, on the walls, on the floor. It was in big piles and little piles. It was really cool to see how the bandsaw was right there front and center in the middle of the room. It was kind of like the heart of the shop. That was their go-to tool for almost probably everything.
You know, when you look at a shop, the bandsaw is a utilitarian piece. Before you had CNC equipment, you were an artist using that bandsaw. It was all about skill. It's kind of a staple of any basic woodworking shop. So
I just heard a lot through his YouTube videos and podcasts where, as a kid, he would always go down there in his father's shop, make swords and knives on the bandsaw. And I think he said he started making signs for other kids in the neighborhood, like self-taught.
So what's fascinating is most craftsmen have tools in their toolkit that they work with. Jimmy uses the bandsaw as one of his basic tools of artistry. Instead of a chisel or a hammer or a screwdriver, he jumps on a bandsaw and can make with a bandsaw what others make with their hands using, chisels and knives. The bandsaw is truly an extension of his mind. What's going through his mind gets transferred through his hands, and that blade shapes what the vision is that he has in his mind. And that can be done in many different ways. It's just he chooses the bandsaw as the device by which he creates with, as opposed to today we go back in our shop, we've got a CNC wood router that we can carve anything we can draw on a computer screen. But if you think about the beauty of using a bandsaw to create a similar shape, is going from the mind and through the muscles and the arms to come out as some shape where the saw is actually removing the wood, and you're telling the wood where to go by using your hands as opposed to a servo drive on a CNC machine.
I think what's fascinating about it is that it's one solid piece of cast iron. Today it would be 3 or 4 or 5 pieces like that make up that whole the whole entire structure.
Unfortunately, new equipment isn't built to the exacting standards that old equipment is. That bandsaw weighs 1,800 pounds, has machine tolerances on it that are remarkable for the era that it was made. If you can paint the picture of them casting that frame in 1910, 5 guys had to create a giant sand cast mold, and then they would have had a molten furnace with a giant ladle that was at 3,000 degrees, and they were in their hopefully heat resistant suits on a very dingy dark plant, pouring this molten steel into this mold to make that casting. And today it would have been an automated facility, but if you think about the men who got up every day and had to go into that plant and pour 1,800 pounds of cast iron into that mold to make that saw, it's just truly amazing at seeing that thing come out of that process.
All right, so would you say, Randy, that picking up that bandsaw was, would you say it was a lot of work?
Not really.